Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to the Major 3 qualifiers. We're here at the third week now, and after a classic Paris Legion Snorefest to start out of the day, certainly the final series was very unexpected indeed. Plenty to talk about there, loads to dive into. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps with the channel. Let's just dive straight into things. Firstly, before we get into the games, I wanted to mention this real quick from Jacob Wolf. Kind of an article breaking here with regard to the amount of money that is still owed by some of these franchise teams from the Overwatch League and the Call of Duty League to Activision Blizzard, of course. Now, some teams, I guess, effectively the idea is here, they pay the 25 million, but they don't pay it up front, right? They effectively pay it in installments over maybe a 10-year period or something like that. Now, effectively, Activision said when the pandemic hit, they were going to delay those payments by quite a fair bit. They've obviously been deferred, and now teams potentially not seeing the return on investment they were expecting to see are saying, look, we want to defer them a bit later. So not really sure where this goes here, right? Because if they're saying that we want to defer these payments to 2024, that's of course quite a while away, expecting, I suppose, by then to potentially be seeing greater return on investment than they currently are, then it definitely puts these entire franchise ecosystems in a bit of jeopardy, especially when you've got teams like Paris Legion and the like that might not be around too much longer. We shall see how that goes, but definitely a big story today. I thought that they're still owed an awful lot of money from these franchise leagues that they might not necessarily be accruing anytime soon. Wonder what Microsoft thinks about that with the acquisition going on. Let's talk, of course, we've got to discuss Paris Legion today, and even as Temp says right here, people trying to discredit me as playing for kills, like I don't run the bomb, throw smokes, turn on people for spawns, because like he was doing, I suppose, with accuracy back in the day on the subliners roster. Pretty fun one back in the Modern Warfare days. But yeah, both these guys were playing it today. Now, just before we get into that, actually wanted to mention this just real quick from Gizmo, because there has been some changes to the game. Now, deaths actually seem to be appearing on the custom games leaderboards. There's been some sort of patch that's come into effect. Of course, a couple of days ago, we saw the patch that came into effect where the players, effectively now that the perks are different, right? They've changed around where Ninja is, and some of the perks are different, so now you can run Ninja and Flak Jacket, stuff like this, which you weren't able to do in the past. So it's definitely changed to some degree what the pros want to do with their classes, which certainly means that they've decided to actually put a delay on this, right? But as Chrome says, Death also shows in control throughout the match and in hardpoint at the end of the game, so I suppose that's finally a good thing here. But as Daniel Sai says, this week's competition will be played on the 16th of May patch, rather than, I guess, the one that we just had a few days ago, where it changed things on the 24th of May. Those new changes will only come into effect after the major has concluded, so probably a good thing, all things considered, right? Really, just to say, okay, look, we're not going to play on this new patch until Major 4, just because it'd be a significant adaptation, I think, in terms of classes, right, for the pros to actually get used to during the mid-season. So good idea of the CDL, I think, to kind of delay that one. But let's dive into the games. Paris, Toronto, whenever Paris are playing, you kind of know it's going to be a bit of a snooze fest. This game one got interesting a little bit. Ultra in, massive advantage early on. Fair play to Cammy though, right, because the big talking point of the first half of the season when Toronto was struggling heavily was, Cammy, CleanX, those two players. CleanX was pretty good at the start of the game, but Cammy was nowhere near what we saw him doing in Cold War, and finally he's starting to hit that kind of form. This game one goes 41 in 32. That's, pretty monstrous numbers. John at 23 in 39. The thing is, really, like, Jimbo goes 30 in 32. But as I've said many times before, one of Paris Legion's SMG duo is just prone to drop a double negative one single map, and you're just not going to be able to win maps like that. Like, Temp goes 29 in 32. He had a monster, 9 streak to keep them in the game. But, it doesn't work out. And this Search and Destroy, Paris went up 2-0 early on, and it looked like they were going to be able to do something here. But all of a sudden, Cammy does this. Well, they won 4 rounds before this anyway, but this could have been a turning point, right? If Paris could have got back into this game. Temp gets 1 kill. Cammy comes, kills this guy after the bomb. This is a 2v3 as well. Spins on Temp. I think Temp might have had a pistol or, I don't know, difficult gunfight for him. But still, the fact that Cammy was even able to win this is pretty outrageous as it is. And, it was a nasty gunfight when kind of the stuff he was doing back in Cold War, right? And we'll see if that continues, because if it does, Toronto are a scary force. But there are plenty of other scary forces in this game right now at the present time, regardless. And as Hicksy says, on the Ultra side, Cammy might be hitting Cold War form. That's the thing. They've got Hicksy, they've got Scrappy over there. I think Scrappy even said he just woke up and the series was already over by the time he'd woken up, which, they lose game 3 in dominating fashion. It was like 3-0 stomping. And Paris Legion this stage at 0 in 5 in terms of record. It's been 63 days, quite remarkable, since Legion earned any CDL points, right? Like, they've had all these league matches to play, the majors to play, but the last time they did was March the 25th against Toronto Ultra, where they picked up back in March, would you believe it? The entirety of April, the entirety of May, it's looking like right here, they're not going to have earned any CDL points. So, look, we know they've got to blow it up. I do feel bad for Johnny Temp, right? He is certainly the shining star of that team, but I do also think that, are they even going to do anything, given that what do they really have to gain out of this situation, right? Champs is off the table. Who knows if they're going to make a run at some point. Maybe they'll decide to do something. Not really sure. I'm just fed up of talking about them at this point. And, Temp, of course, is frustrated, understandably so. He's like, GG's Toronto, I'm dead. And, this is absolutely fine with the house burning down around him. So, wonder what's going to happen there going forward. Toronto win this one 3-0, securing themselves the winners bracket spot. Just to look real quick at the stats right here, it's kind of a classic situation. John goes -25. Something's got to give in this team in tweeting a perspective down below. Let's dive into the next series then, a kind of briefer one. Well, actually it was 4 maps here, but it was kind of boring to be honest, because Mutineers just collapsed in some of these games. But fair play to Seattle Surge. Like, this is kind of why I favor them a little bit here, because I thought they might win this one 3-2, but I also thought that they're so good at Barrage, and the Mutineers just love playing Barrage against anyone, which kind of surprises me just because their team theoretically probably shouldn't be as good on Barrage as Seattle is. So when they played this map, Seattle are big favorites for my opinion. It was 250-231, it was a close game, but Pred and Civ are so good at this map, and Pred was the one to take over this game, and in fairness, this series. We'll certainly have to talk about Dave Paddy's stats as well at the end of the kind of discussion on this topic, because like definitely the big question is, whenever they lose a series, like what is Dave Paddy actually doing on the map? We'll see that here in a second. Now in fairness to Mutineers, they clutch up, win the Search and Destroy, but game 3, game 4 was absolutely dominant in favor of Seattle. A 3-0 for Seattle Surge in this game 3. Like I thought this might be competitive, but it was on a Tuscan. Seattle just bowled them over, to be honest. A pretty good map for their SMG players. And I mean, yeah, Florida put down their controllers that map, says Parasite in this one, and then they close out their series as well in the final hard point. So I was rather impressed by Seattle here. They looked pretty good, like losing the Search and Destroy, but winning the respawns in the fashion they did against a team like Florida Mutineers, not all that easy to do, and accuracy is like, even as Dashy says, king of the hill. No one loves the hill more than me. He was certainly lapping up some hill time that final map, while his team effectively just ran over the competition. And even, this from Chrome, we remember last year, if you guys were around last year, the kind of, the sensitivity training that Cammy had to go through for one particular word that he may or may not have said. Well, he did say it, obviously, that's why I had to do the sensitivity training. But after that sensitivity training, he was an absolute monster for the rest of the year. Maybe we're kind of reaching that time of year again. And of course, the Aussies, the Scottish, they like to use this word a fair bit more than other cultures do, let's just say. And maybe Pred is using it to great effect in this series. I don't really know. But yeah, he was certainly screaming his head off after they won that game 4. Dominant fashion at the end of the day this series. Just look at these numbers, right? I mean, Pred's 1.29 plus 23. Lots of damage across the board outside of Mack, who didn't really need to do that much. But look at Dave Paddy, right? 76 and 76. Drops a 1.0 KD flat, but still only has 8,600 damage, the lowest in the lobby. So I don't really know what this guy is doing a lot of the time, to be perfectly honest. But I mean, look, Florida will probably do that thing again where they'll have a decent result at the major, or they'll like beat a good team at the major, and then they'll think, okay, yeah, we don't need to change anymore. This team's perfectly fine. Whereas, as I said earlier today, this team is never winning, a tournament. There's just no way this is ever going to happen. And here we go, then. We've got to talk about that final series of the day. The perfect time. I know Minnesota Rokkr do watch parties pretty much every single game they play, but this certainly was a great series for them to do a watch party. They came into this series 4-0 record, 12-3 map count. Early today, I thought, okay, look, let's see how they go. I thought they could have maybe taken it in a game 5 this series. I thought potentially FaZe were going to be slightly strong in the respawns, and then Minnesota were going to fall short in some of the clutch moments that they've been making work for them so far. Right? So far at this stage, they've won a lot of close clutch respawns. I thought against FaZe, it's going to go the other way. But yeah, FaZe, I don't really know what I think about this team, because when they played Optic just the other day, I was looking at it on paper and I was like, okay, look, Shotzzy right now is better than aBeZy, Scump is better than Simp, Dashy's maybe on par with Cellium, and Illy or Prolete is better than Arcitys, right? So I was going to look at the head-to-head there and thinking, okay, actually, Optic probably right now have more firepower and just better players pound for pound than FaZe do, at least in this game as it currently stands. But I thought, okay, against the rest of the league, FaZe are always just so good, right? They just beat everyone that isn't called Optic Texas right now. That was not the case this series, and Rokkr, looking to solidify that number 1 seed, just came with the absolute fire. Like, game 1, I mean, Attach certainly, this is why I pick him in my fantasy, right? This is why I have him in my fantasy, because he just delivers the goods. Game 1 was dominant, honestly. It was just Attach, frankly. They are so good, FaZe, at this map, Barrage hardpoints, and Minnesota, a team that theoretically shouldn't be that good at this map, really, just ran them over. Attach goes 37 in 15 game 1. I've not seen a KD like that against FaZe for a rather long time. Well, frankly, since last week when Prolute did it with Optic against this exact FaZe team. 37 in 15 is just absurd, especially on a map like Barrage. Drops the most damage in the lobby, as of course you might well expect. And FaZe, look at this. I mean, how often do you see Cellium go 18 in 28 for a 0.64? Like, that does not happen very often. Attach just had his way with, must be said. Of course, he played for FaZe before, but Priestahh, and of course, MajorManiak, who's now on the bench, but Priestahh, former FaZe player as well, and he was the one to turn up on the game too. Like, I mean, this is a crazy stat here for money stats as well. FaZe losing on Barrage by over 100 points. That is very rarely going to happen. What a way to end the 200th hardpoint league match this year. So Rokkr really just showed that they were here, well, they meant business, right? And Attach it was turning up game 1. But game 2, it was Priestahh who went off on the main stage. Like, he had a phenomenal game 2. Goes 10 in 1 on the Barrage Search and Destroy. And FaZe get blown out back-to-back Barrages. Like, this is a map where they've had a fair bit of comfort so far. They, of course, beat Optic on this map, I think, just the other day. Yeah, they, of course, did, right, in that game 2 that they won in that series. They lost all the respawns, though. And, yeah, Minnesota is not a team you expect to lose all the respawns to. But that's pretty much what happened here. After they lose this game 2 in dominating fashion, a 6-1 it was in their favour. As you can see, the stats are Priestahh's 10 in 1, like Cellium's 3 in 6, Simp 4 in 7, aBeZy 2 in 3-6, Arcitys 4-6, and it's just kind of crazy to see, right, this FaZe team that, of course, was so dominant last season. There was all this talk this year, could they kind of cement their legacy, their dynasty era in this game? And, of course, they want to do that by, of course, like, it's an online league match, but this certainly shows that right now they're not where they need to be if they want to be consistently or just winning any titles at all, because Rokkr, they're up there. Like, you've got Toronto making progress, Optic, of course, are significantly a step above FaZe at the present time, and, this team is honestly in a bit of a question mark situation, right? What are they going to do over these coming weeks? Because they've got a lot of problems to work on, right? It's not just one game mode that's their issue. If you're losing to Minnesota all across the board in every single game mode, and this was absolutely dominant, game 1 was absolutely dominant, and game 3 they lost in a fashion that really you cannot afford to lose if you're FaZe. And this is how it went down, right? It was 2-1 against Minnesota at this point, or it was 2-1 in their favor. All defense has been won so far, and I'm pretty sure FaZe had kind of captured more ticks here, so it looked like Minnesota were going to lose this round. They were down so heavily on lives, and they were going to, be forced to go to an offense round 5 and probably lose that as well. Okay, FaZe are going to be back in the series. Who knows what happens game 4, game 5. FaZe can certainly pull something out of the bag. But somehow, Minnesota break into the point. This is why I love Berlin, right? Because, it's maybe not the most phenomenal control map we've ever seen in Call of Duty history, but compared to the other ones, it creates possibilities for moments like this, where Rokkr are down at 4 lives to 12, all the boys get into the hard point, into the control point right here, and FaZe have 1.5 seconds just to keep them off it, but FaZe flood a bit too much, they die one by one, and all of a sudden they're all sacking the point very heavily. That capture is going up very quickly indeed. aBeZy has to jump in the window, he goes down, the final guy gets dropped as well, Arcitys, and all of a sudden out of absolutely nowhere, Rokkr managed to capture this point to win the game. So no idea how FaZe managed to throw that one away. Like, they will be mind blown that that was even possible. I've never really seen a clutch like this in control so far in this game, to be honest. Down 4-12, it looked impossible, but Rokkr never gave up the ghost run. It's never chalked, as I'm sure MajorManiak was telling them there on the bench, right? And I was wondering when MajorManiak left this team whether they would, he got benched for the team and decided to leave it, but whether they would kind of retain the clutch factor that they had when they had him in the roster. Seemingly they absolutely have done in spades. I mean, this is not something that you're meant to win here against FaZe. Rokkr 3-0 them and move to 5-0 with a 15-3 map count heading into Major 3. And shout out to Kyler Garland on Twitter with a kind of misspelled Kyler, you know how it goes, for shouting this out, or at least pointing out this kind of incredible statistic that this team of 4, yes, they lost to Optic with Prestinni instead of Simp a couple of weeks ago before Major 2 or whatever it was, when Simp was kind of unwell. They had to bring Prestinni in. They got 3-0'd by Optic then. But this team of 4, Simp, aBeZy, Cellium, and Arcitys, never got 3-0'd last season. This is the first time this team of 4 specifically has ever got 3-0'd, which is, quite something, right? But at the same time, that shows they're not necessarily hitting form at the right time, right? And all this talk about somehow they're still, for some reason, the best team in the game and they're just playing Optic and losing just because they're saving strats or whatever, doesn't seem to hold that much water when we think about where they would like to be and where they presently are. Minnesota understandably rubbing salt in the wounds here, is FaZe actually good? And we've got to look at their overall series stats, right? Like, here we go, attackers at 1.55, plus 23, of course, most of the damage was done there in game number 1, but how often can you look at a FaZe side that got outslayed this heavily, right? I mean, obviously it happened against Optic just a few days ago, but against a team non-Optic, it's rather rare, and honestly very impressive by Minnesota, right? As I said, maybe a couple of weeks ago now, is this the time that Attach gets his slice of the pie? He's certainly playing like he wants to get it, right? But Cellium 0.75, Simp, aBeZy, none of them really turned up this series. And again, it's Priestahh pretty much being the second best player on this team. So much to talk about here, I'm sure, over the coming days that we already looked at. I do, of course, wonder, right, whether they're looking a bit mid, whether they'll, just go in and absolutely dominate this tournament, but I kind of doubt it based on what we are currently seeing. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit in the like button, tell us your YouTube gods, this is a good video, and as like you should see it as well, and upgrade the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.